How big's your team?
We are 50 on the corporate side and about 90 on the factory side. We own our own manufacturing.
Okay, I'm going to get into all that. One of the reasons I asked that is, I think about 50 plus person company on the corporate side getting distribution to 18,000 stores. For the would-be food entrepreneurs listening, how do you do that? How do you get from a product to getting onto a shelf to getting onto many shelves? What's the method? Are there brokers? What's the brass tacks how for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is probably no single right answer, but our answer is from a team of people, none of whom had worked in food before. Of our first 15 or 20 employees, nobody had done this. And we sort of wore that as a badge of pride. It's that classic entrepreneurial outsider thing. You're like, hey, I'm going to do something a way that no one else would have thought to. And sometimes that made it much, much harder on us. But I think on balance, it made it easier. We sort of eschewed the traditional broker and sales structure. And, just like in any company, your early team should go do a lot of the direct selling themselves. And you're going to do a lot of it through hustle. So we found we would just go out to trade shows and we would just bring the energy. There would be our entire team, which at the time would have been 5 or 10 or 15 people, just bouncing up and down, running through the aisles of these trade shows, yelling at buyers for these grocery stores when we would see their name badges an aisle over, running samples up to them. And that sort of scrappy energy will go a really long way. Most people are still afraid to make the call, do the thing. And the other thing we did is just network our way to people, not even through professional networks, often through cold calling. You can literally sometimes just call a retailer and ask for somebody's contact information and get it. Or you can send them a message on LinkedIn, or you can ask a friend of a friend. And over time, I think we started to shift to getting warm intros instead of just blowing people's spots up wherever they were. But certainly at the very beginning, do not be afraid to just get your product in front of people and tell them your story and see if they like it.
Is there a trade show in particular you recommend for folks to kind of get started?
Yeah. Natural Products Expo West and East are the best shows for new innovation. There are many others, but those are the ones where we met a lot of people.
Okay. And when you blow someone up, whether you're going through LinkedIn or you're kind of scouting through their receptionist or whatever's going on, do you follow up? What is the move? Do you send a product? Do you call them?
Yeah.
How do you get from cold to yes?
You have to have a chance to both get them to try the product and to tell the story of why you're doing it. And in food, those two things are so linked. It's not just a transaction. They need to understand, because the consumer is going to make an emotional decision in the store about why they're buying the thing. They want to see so much more. Retailers want to see the details of your marketing plan. It's the craziest thing. I'm if people are buying this, why do you need to know that? And it's because they're thinking about your future too. And I've been pretty pleasantly surprised by how seriously buyers take their jobs. Buyers are the people at the grocery stores who choose what products go on your shelves. How seriously they take their jobs in terms of understanding the brands and the why behind them. I think there's also credit due to people for trying to make purchase decisions that way. So you have to get them to taste it, and you have to get a chance to tell them their story. And that just means relentless follow-up.
And so how do you get them to taste it? You just ship them a product?
It's
in the mail?
Yeah. If you're at a trade show, you can cook it to them and just hand it to them. We did that with regular people too. I can't tell you the number of Saturdays that we spent at ShopRites in New Jersey, just serving samples. That kind of thing is how you get feedback from people, hear what they like and what they don't like, what pitch works best. And then, and you can, if you got a chance with a retailer, you do everything you can to make it successful, including kind of getting out there and investing in them, on feet on the street.
So when you're at a ShopRite, New Jersey, giving out samples, did you guys just show up, or do you get permission from the general manager?
No.
How does that work?
Yeah. You get permission.
So you're already on the shelf at that point, right?
That's right.
So you've already gotten the buyer to say yes, and then you called the buyer and said, hey, we want to demo some product.
Yeah, or there's somebody at the organization. It kind of depends on the chain as to how it works. Another thing you can do, just to build a little bit of customer love early, back when we had an office in Detroit, our team would go to Eastern Market, which is, this like big farmers market, and set up there and serve all day and, build some awareness and validation and make enough sales to kind of try to help keep the lights on.
Okay, great. You mentioned there was a traditional way to do the distribution, right? And you guys didn't know it, and that was an advantage because you went direct. Can you explain the traditional method so people are aware of that? What are the channels? What do they cost? Do they work? How does that work?
Yes. So traditionally in food, so it depends on who's doing it. If it's a big company or a small company. If it's a big company, they go to the retailers that they already have the relationships with. And when I say big company, the big food companies in America, General Mills, Hormel, Nestle, Unilever, on and on. They can all basically go to a retailer and say, hey, we'd like you to take this product. And I don't really know what happens in those rooms because I don't get invited into those conversations. But I assume there's a back and forth and some money changes hands and, things just magically appear on shelf. For us, it's not quite like that. You have to kind of prove that you deserve the spot and earn it. One of the ways that people talk about building distribution rapidly is that they bring on a broker who's an intermediary who has a relationship with those retailers and can go right into their offices and talk with them. And those folks can be super helpful for understanding the specific dynamics of those retailers, for understanding what kind of sales pitch is going to work, for helping you get access to data, things like that. But when you're really early, they don't have enough time to pay attention to your tiny little brand that's doing a few $100,000 in revenue. They need to focus on bigger brands that are doing more. And it's just, generally speaking, they can be helpful as you grow. And we work with folks who are terrific now. But in our earliest days, we need to do the selling. It's just like, you can't outsource that selling when you're the CEO or an early executive or an early team member at a small company. You can't just say, we're going to hire a vet and they're going to do it for us. Over time, as you have to build better programs and practices and invest a certain amount in trade spend and things like that, you need veterans who understand how retail works. But early on, you're kind of better off not thinking about things like slotting fees, which is the amount that you pay to get on shelf. You say, look, if we do that, we're not going to make payroll. And that works for a while. And then eventually it kind of stops working.
What's the inflection point in the company where it makes sense to bring on the brokers?
Boy, it probably varies depending on where you want to get distribution. We found a lot of value in working with big strategic accounts and having brokers on those accounts because they were just so complicated. Some of the largest accounts in the country, those are the ones where there was so much we didn't know, and we could do enough business through them to make it worthwhile. There are some folks who say it's really great to get a broker force out there to work with mom and pops. We still haven't done that much independent grocery work because even though 50 people sounds like a lot of that growth for us was in the last couple of years. And, when you have a 15-person team, you just really can't spend the time running down all those small individual accounts. So, you kind of look at it either way. I think opinions vary. I think our opinion is you try to take on anything you can take on yourself, and you find strategic voices and advisors where you can get them. And sometimes those are brokers, and sometimes those are investors, and sometimes those are just like friendly people in the food industry. The folks at Chobani, we went through their incubator program a few years ago, and they have just been like terrific at helping us understand how the industry works and helping us see around corners and not, walk into Walmart and say something really dumb.
Got it. It sounds like it's a very delicate process.
Yeah, it is. But you can mess up a lot, and there's still other retailers who will talk to you. And, ultimately it comes down to, do people love your stuff and do they buy it and do they keep buying it? And I think, we've made mistakes and gotten chances, and it's taken us 6 years to build to this point, which feels like a lifetime. But, it can be delicate, but I think at risk of, I would err on the side of doing stuff rather than overthinking it.
What mistakes have you made? Give some examples, things you learned for future food entrepreneurs so they can avoid them.
Yeah, we launched mac and cheese because we were like, pasta, we have a great pasta. You know what else is awesome? Mac and cheese. But we did no consumer research. We had no understanding of what people needed in the category. We launched it with like rainbow colored boxes that totally lost this like signature Banza orange that we had. And so for like a year, it just kind of sat there and nobody knew what it was. We had no money to put marketing behind it. It was in very little distribution. So even if we could have spent money against it, like, what were we going to do? Like, do like billboards, do digital ads? Like, that isn't really, necessarily how people do most of their grocery shopping when you're really little. That's not how you find out about new products. So we kind of let it sit for a year. And then we said, we need to go back, better understand the consumer, strengthen the product and fix the packaging and kind of say, hey, what is it? What problem are we solving for people? And so you can't let, hey, we can make a good version of this be how you innovate. You need to think about what problem are we solving for people and make sure that you're positioning it that way accordingly, all the way to the packaging and the retailer and the marketing and just, every piece of the puzzle.
It sounds like the customer development side of the world applies to food as well, right?
It does.
That same thinking. Right?
It does. Honestly, the amount of research that we do, like, I think has been, the more research we do, the better we feel about what we're doing. We did research for a new category last summer and we were all so convinced it was where we were going to go next. And then the research came back and the answer was, well, everybody's pretty satisfied with what they're buying there now in that aisle. And we said, okay, well, I guess we shouldn't. And just like thinking about that, because unlike a tech product, you can't just ship it and then be like, and let's see if it works. And then we'll pull it off the production server as soon as it's not a good feature, right? You can't like A/B test quite as cleanly in food. You have to go in when you do something. You have to commit and put your energy and your passion behind launching the right product. And so I think that's been an adjustment for me coming from slightly more of a tech background to say, we can't just like try a bunch of stuff. Like you kind of have to say, hey, let's make sure, that people are excited about this. So we do a lot of sending products to people in their homes and getting home usage tests and finding out how long they cooked it and what they thought of it and what worked and what didn't and, adapting from there.
Can we drill down to that a little bit? So if I was to start a new food product and you said the word research, could mean a lot of things and it's probably different for tech companies and for food companies and for everything else. What would you actually do? Brass tacks, like what is it? You're mailing the food out, you're standing on a corner. Like what is the research method for you guys? You hire a firm?
The first thing you're going to do is start with your product and make sure that people like it and that they understand it. And you're going to figure out how you're talking about it too. So that could be literally getting out at some sort of place where you can get a booth. Now, maybe you're in a local grocery store and you're demoing in that store and you're seeing if the words you say lead somebody to walk away from your thing with it. You're seeing who's willing to buy it. Are people's kids willing to eat it? Like that kind of stuff. And you just always have to start with the food and how does it taste in this industry. We graduated to a lot of surveys, like, a lot of those just simple online surveys to at first kind of friends and family folks. But then we would ask everybody who signed up on our website to buy a box. If, we sent an email around saying, hey, do you want to join our little squad and participate in the occasional research thing that we send? And that helped us get kind of insider feedback. And then, of course, you can use those platforms to reach different, demographic groups or behavioral groups or what have you, to just understand if what you're doing is resonating at all. You're never really going to know until you figure out how you're going to execute it in retail, but that can help you a little bit. And I would caution against using e-commerce, which is the traditional validation platform for people, like all these clothing companies that pop up in your Instagram feeds and all these different products for your home and whatever, like all that stuff, they can do it that way and it can work well that way. Grocery is still primarily an in-person transaction. You go into the store, you look around and you buy stuff. And you can't draw too many conclusions from what sells well online and, versus what sells well in person.